Hello, and welcome to Temple of the Fall Spot. Where decks are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy.
I'm Bruce.
And, it's been too long without a deck tale, so here's a deck tale. Woo! For those who don't know, our deck tales are just fancy names for deck decks, where we just like to share, maybe a story or two as we talk about it. So today I brought in one because I had some wonderful experiences with this deck. I built this deck specifically for Brucon. I had taken apart my Bruse Tarl deck before, and now I was like, I need something that's got red, and I want something where I can just put all my good white cards in, and that's what this deck is. That may have answered any questions you have about this deck in just that sentence, but let's go over it. So, off the bat, the commanders, they're partners, but it only makes up two colors. So we've got Bruse Tarl Boorish Herder. He's a 3/3 for white-red 2. And he says, whenever Bruse Tarl Boorish Herder enters the battlefield or attacks, target creature you control gains double strike and lifelink until end of turn. And he's got partner. And I partnered him with Kediss, Emberclaw Familiar from Commander Legends. He's a 1/1 for red and 1. It's an elemental lizard, and it says, whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So these two together, it seems like a pretty straightforward deck, right?
So I'm guessing most of the time Bruse Tarl is going to give his abilities to himself.
Oh, yes.
Kediss is out there.
Yeah, so let me paint the scene for you. Set the scene, whatever the phrase is. You got Bruse Tarl down. It comes back around. You play Kediss for 2. Now, at the beginning of combat, you attack with Bruse, and he triggers, and you give himself double strike and lifelink. So he's, naturally a 3/3. So say you attack the person who has no blockers. Now he has double strike and lifelink. He's going to end up doing 3, and you gain 3. But then he also does 3 to your other 2 opponents, so you're gaining 3 and 3 again. And then that happens once more. So overall, let's see, that's 3, 3, and 3, and then 3, 3, and 3. That's 6 times 3, that's 18 life. You're gaining.
Yeah.
Each of your opponents is losing 6. That's easily a 24-point swing.
Right.
Which is nuts for turn 5.
Yeah.
And so the deck revolved around the idea that I would want to be swinging with Bruse. Whether I give him haste or somehow multiply how much damage he's doing. But I also, like I said, I also wanted to what did I say? Oh, I also wanted like a home for like some of my like, white good cards that I had accrued that I hadn't really had a chance to play yet, and because I hadn't had a deck to put them in.
Right.
But I think overall, the deck does its thing, or it doesn't. I threw in some creatures to kind of make sure that it does eventually like have a way to win like if Bruse becomes prohibitively expensive. But I don't know. I honestly don't know where to start. I think the ramp's pretty straightforward. Arcane Signet, Keeper of the Accord, generic white card, or generic white good stuff that also helps make blockers. Now, this was a thing that I was thinking about today, actually, in preparation for this episode, was if you are, going the Voltron strategy, one of the biggest things that the Voltron strategy lacks is, like, you are usually attacking with one creature, and you generally don't have much else going on.
Right.
But Keeper of the Accord, and there are some other few things around here, help make tokens. So then you do have blockers. Which honestly is what this is more for than the land stuff. The land stuff's nice, but it's nowhere near as helpful as just making blockers.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that just because a lot of time Boros decks are a go wide strategy, and I know you've got Keeper of the Accord, and I noticed that there's where is it here? Assemble the Legion is also floating around.
Master of Ceremonies also. I wasn't
sure. Right, so I wasn't sure if you were looking at a go wide strategy as sort of a backup plan. Obviously, Bruse Tarl and Kediss are sort of working together to do their thing, but I wasn't sure if it was going elsewhere as well.
It's a bit of both. I would say it's probably honestly more for like a insurance perspective, just like in case Bruse Tarl is out of commission for good, because if you're attacking with Bruse Tarl, and like I said, one attack that gets through, you're going to be gaining, 18 life? Like, you're not terribly worried about the crackback because you're gaining 18 life a turn, at least. That's like base. You know, that's without any equipment, that's without any multipliers. So, like, it is kind of there as insurance, but it is also there as backup in case Bruse Tarl is out of commission.
Right.
Same goes with Master of Ceremonies. Master of Ceremonies is also just a really good card.
Right.
You can get creatures out of it. You can get treasures out of it. You can get cards. I mean, honestly, I think that like your opponents will be having a hard time with this card because they don't know, like they don't want you to have blockers, but that means they're going to either give you mana or going to give you cards.
Right.
So I feel like this really makes decisions tough for them. And then Archaeomancer's map, I've played this and I feel like it's gotten a little bit more airtime than it deserves. I think it's a little overrated. It is a good card, don't get me wrong, but I feel like it isn't like there's a point where generally, or at least in our power level group, our group's power level, Archaeomancer's map, I guess I'll read the card. 2 and a white for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 2 basic planes, reveal them, put them in your hand. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player controls more land than you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. And honestly, like, you're gonna get to the, like, it helps you obviously if you're behind, but also if you're not the first person. But then you reach a point extremely quickly where you do have the tide for most lands. If you weren't already there.
Right. Now, this is not a ramp card. This is a card that gets you lands in hand so you can keep up. So you're going to make your land drop every turn. I have found with Archaeomancer's map that realistically, I want it when I am not the one going first in the game.
Yeah.
Because, well, you and I both espouse the 40 land deck because we want to hit our land drops every turn. Well, Archaeomancer's map is only really good when you're behind. So either if you want it in the early game to keep up, then you want to be literally the third or the fourth person because you want the players in front of you to be playing their lands, and then you can say, hey, great, now I can play a land and match up with you for the number of lands. So, but that only, like you said, that only works once, maybe twice. And then you're sort of relying on the green player to cultivate and do everything else to find more lands so you can continue to match with them. And I haven't found that to happen too often, just because for the most part, with 40 lands, I've got the land drops. So I just end up with 2 more cards in my hand that are lands, and that can be fine, but it's not always great. So I don't know if this is a case of, a card that's best when you're running fewer than 40 lands, but if you're running fewer than 40 lands, you certainly don't want to be relying on trying to find an Archaeomancer's map to balance things out.
It's definitely a card that, like, if you have it, it's fine. I think, honestly, like, for me, it might be more of just like a lightning rod where, like, honestly, it's best to just get the 2 lands and then not really worry about it. Like, if you're spending more time in the game trying to figure out if you're keeping up on land, like, it's going to attract attention. People are going to get rid of it. And, like, that's fine. You know? Like, by that point, you probably have the same amount of lands. And, like, I think it also kind of goes to show that our meta doesn't generally have too many, like, lands decks. But I think that, like, as a card, it's a little overdone. I don't know.
A little bit. I think it's a good card. I just don't think it's as good as it has been portrayed in the past. I mean, we glossed over Master of Ceremonies, and I appreciate that when people read Master of Ceremonies, and yes, that is a wall of text, so a lot of people aren't reading it. But when you read it, the initial thought is, oh, I'm always just going to get what my opponents want to give me.
Right.
So they're going to look at what I don't need and give me that. Or they're going to work together and they're going to be like, haha, we'll all draw cards. And then that way, Andy will be stuck with extra cards in his hand and he'll have to discard them.
Shucks.
Darn.
Yeah. Oh, getting 4 cards a turn. What a pain.
People don't realize how good Master of Ceremonies is. And Andy, I wanted to ask you, so in the games where it's come out, how are your opponents deciding what to choose? Because when I play it, they pick what they want.
Yeah.
And I just get off. I just get whatever they pick. So I haven't seen people fighting it. So
I think that, like, it definitely ends up being that way. I think I've only played it once, and that was when I played the pre-con that it came in. And it that's exactly what happens. Or at least, like, with our meta. And I think that if you are a generally casual meta, like, that's what it will tend to be. Because, like, people are, like, there's no winning as an opponent of this card.
Well, no. I mean, I look at this card and a card like Rhystic Study. When you read Rhystic Study and you realize, okay, so I pay or you get a card.
Right.
Well, then the choice is you pay. You should pay every single time because you don't want to give your opponents cards. And anybody who looks at this card should be saying the same thing because you don't want to give your opponents cards. But in practice, we all know almost nobody pays.
Yeah.
Everybody just gives you the card. Now, whether it's because Commander is a casual format or it's because people are like, I'm going to spend this 2 mana on something else. So I am not going to let you slow my board state down by demanding I pay 2 so you don't get to draw the card. Especially when I know that the guy the next guy up, is going to let you draw the card and he's going to be able to move faster and I'm not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah.
And that same thing happens with Master of Ceremonies.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that hard for your opponents to be like, look, we should all give him a creature.
Yeah.
Because he can't do anything with these 1/1s. They're basically useless. We'll blow through them. It'll be fine. But they don't because everybody wants the card. Or maybe they need a treasure because they're getting land screwed and they wanted just that little bit of help. Nobody's paying attention to you and what you're getting from all of this.
Yeah.
And it also means that they're much less likely to take out the Master of Ceremonies. They're getting a benefit from it. So at least, as far as I can tell, at least right now, people are not playing against Master of Ceremonies very well. So I think this is a great card right now.
I love it.
Yeah.
One that I want to see come out, I have in ramp because, well, it's a very red rampy card, is Descent to Avernus. Descent into Avernus. It's 2 in a red for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. So you're all getting treasure, you're all getting hurt, but it is just moving the game. That's all it's doing. It's making people like be later in the game, and then also bringing their life totals down.
Says the guy who has the commander who has lifelink.
Exactly. Also the guy who has, and I mean, this is the perfect time to kind of go into my Bing Bong category, the guy who's got Dictate of the Twin Gods, Angrath's Marauders, which is like especially helpful.
Yes.
And Torbran, which will help hurt my opponents more than it will hurt me. And this category was just, hey, let's just amplify the damage, whether it's Lunar Frenzy, which is my pet card for every red deck. Because it's a 1 mana give thing, trample and first strike in its essence, and if you can use it as a finisher, more power to you.
Right.
You make Bruse Tarl a 3/3 with double strike to, say, a 6/6 with double strike by spending 4 mana at instant speed with trample.
6/3 with double strike, but
6/3 with double strike and trample.
But it's not. But honestly, it's not going to matter because he's already got the double strike. More importantly, he hits first, and when you're hitting for 6, you're just taking out your blocker. They're not going to get a chance to swing back. Who cares if your toughness is only 3? They're going to need a 6/7 creature to even be able to kill your creature.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And the fact that this is like instant speed, it's a combat trick.
Yeah.
Nobody will see it coming. And I mean, that, like you said, with that trample, or with that example, trample just makes it so that, like, even if he's up against a 3/3, first strike happens, you get 6. It 6 is it, 3 gets through, and then the second one still happens. Without trample, that second. Now. This is here to pump up Bruse Tarl to win games. Same with Temur Battle Rage. Temur Battle Rage, it's already got double strike, but really giving it that trample for 2 mana is great.
You and I have both been big on Temur Battle Rage ever since we did the Lord of Tressorhorn decks.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of this card as well.
Court of Ire, excellent card, especially if you've got blockers to make sure you keep the Monarch. You're just doing you're shocking something every turn for free, or you're dealing 7 to something, probably a player, every turn. Duelist Heritage. The more I'm looking at a lot of these cards, the more I'm realizing I'm unnecessarily giving things double strike when Bruse is already doing that. But this is nice too because you can target your opponent's creatures. It can be a tactical or what's the word? Political gain. Balefire Liege, solid Boros card. Balefire Liege is Boros, hybrid mana, and 2 for a 2/4. Spirit Horror, it says other red creatures you control get +1/+1. Other white creatures you control get +1/+1. And guess what Bruse is? Bruse is both. So he gets +2/+2. He's a 5/5. Whenever you cast a red spell, it deals 3 damage to target player or planeswalker. Whenever you cast a white spell, you gain 3. That stuff's not going to happen as much, but it is there for lordship and blocking, honestly.
Right.
Dictate the Twin Gods
Yeah.
kind of goes with Angrath's Marauders.
Really
doing
quick
it.
on Balefire Liege, I have been big on this card since it came out, and we're talking, I think, Shadowmoor.
Yeah.
All of the lieges I think are pretty good, but doing with Boros, it's just this one somehow is just that little bit better because you're loading up with creatures, and in this deck, I mean, yeah, you really want Bruse Tarl to have a bigger power, and this gives him a bonus too. And then whenever you're playing any kind of spell, you're getting all kinds of other bonuses as well.
Yeah.
It forces opponents. It's amazing how often your opponents feel like they have to get rid of this card over the card that it's benefiting. So it's like, oh, no. We got to get rid of the Liege because then he's just going to play something else out, and that's going to get a benefit. And we're going to get hit for 3 more damage, or they're going to gain 3 life. It's just, it's a beautiful pump for Bruse Tarl, and it's kind of an insurance policy too. It's something else that's big that's out there that needs to be dealt with. So
yeah, it's everything that Firesong and Sunspeaker wanted to be.
Right.
Dictate the Twin Gods kind of goes with Angrath's Marauders. It's just going to double your stuff. Which so say you have either of these out, you attack with Bruse Tarl. Let's use the example from before. You deal first strike damage.
Yeah.
It deals 3 to opponent. Now, with Kediss out, it's going to, with Angrath's Marauders, it's going to deal 6. Now, Kediss sees the 6 happen, and Bruse Tarl will deal 6, turning into 12 to each of your other ones.
Yeah.
With lifelink, that's 24 for the other two, and 12, or 24 and 6. That's 30 on first strike alone. You're gaining, and then another 30 with normal.
Once the doubling starts, this gets way out of hand. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what I think had like solidified this deck as me going, whoa, maybe I need to pump the brakes with this. Because I mean, like I still have my life total here from when we played it at BrewCon.
Yeah.
And it goes 40, 48, 108.
Yeah.
Like it's that fast.
Right. I have 2 questions. The first one is Brass Taunter.
Yes.
Does Brass Taunter do anything other than block?
Depends. So Brass Taunter, can block.
Yeah.
Or if, for instance, I need to just get a little bit more, especially if I have Dictate or Angrath's Marauders out. I can attack into Bruse Tarl, or I can have it fight Bruse Tarl, and if it still has lifelink, great. It is just another one of those kind of generically good red cards, but it definitely feels like it belongs here because of the damage multipliers, but also we're dealing with big numbers here.
Right.
And go ahead.
Well, my other question was in relation to Cathar's Crusade. Now, obviously, that's a card that really thrives when you're dropping a ton of, it's often seen with a ton of token creatures.
Yeah.
Now, so is the goal to have that out and be playing in with any of the cards that are going to get you a ton of tokens, or is that just sort of every time a creature comes out, Bruse Tarl gets another +1/+1 counter, and with the double strike, it counts for 2 more damage.
Yeah,
at least.
So we haven't gotten to it yet, but there is a copy sub theme.
Yeah.
That I haven't actually had do anything yet. I just think I just haven't played the deck enough. And honestly, I feel like it's not strong enough to really do much, but we'll get there in a second. But with Cathar's Crusade, it's mostly just because with the double strike theme of the deck, whether it's through Bruse Tarl or literally anything else, a single counter is worth twice as much.
Right.
So it really does do that double duty.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my Bing Bong category.
Okay.
My fast category is what I called it. Is just haste. Cloak of the Bat is we played Baldur's Gate, right? We played Baldur's Gate.
That's why I want to ask you about Cloak of the Bat too.
And it easily became the talk of the town that night of Cloak of the Bat. It just wins games. For 2 mana, it's an equipment. It gets down on the battlefield. You equip it for 2, which is sometimes a lot, but like generally speaking, especially with equipment, giving something flying and haste for 2.
Yeah.
And you can do that with multiple creatures. Like you can do that. Like if that thing dies, you can put it on something else, unlike an enchantment. It's nuts. It really does its work for 4 mana.
Okay, because I was going to ask, because so many times when I'm playing out, the difficulty is the equip cost in addition to playing the creature. Like, equip 2 doesn't sound like a lot, but it suddenly is a lot when you've just played, a 4 mana or a 5 mana creature.
Right.
It's like, oh, okay. Especially when you're playing up to curve for those first 5 turns. I'm not sure how effective the haste part is on Cloak of the Bat. Now, don't get me wrong. Flying, okay, well, that opens up a whole new thing. And remember, this is a straight artifact. This isn't a colored artifact. This can go in any deck.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you've got white in here, and there is plenty of flying in white if you really want it.
Right.
But I mean, hello.
So
this is So I
With,
wasn't sure if the haste was helpful.
Yes. Okay. With our meta specifically, the games tend to go longer, right?
Right.
And you get Bruse Tarl down on 4, and even if you can't equip it right away to the cloak, say cloak's already down, the next turn you equip it and it can fly, which is excellent. Right. But it also means that a lot more eyes are going to turn toward it because you're going to be doing these huge amounts of damage. And now, all of a sudden, Bruse Tarl's costs 6, or 8.
Yeah.
So later on in the game, you can get it out. The cloak is still sitting there, generally. And you'll be able to equip the cloak and then go right in. And having Bruse Tarl trigger twice on a turn means that it can target something else.
Okay.
Which is excellent, honestly, if you have other creatures and you don't feel bad about sending them in. Having Bruse Tarl come down, target something else, equip the cloak, have it attack, and then have it target itself then is excellent.
Sure. Okay.
Haunted Cloak, very similar. Vigilance, Trample, Haste instead of flying in haste. Haunted Cloak is 3 equipped for 1, which is nice. Swiftfoot Boots is 2 and 1, gives it hexproof, which is nice. I also, there was an earlier one where I had Greaves in it, Lightning Greaves. But the thing about Greaves is that it is
Shroud, isn't it?
It's Shroud. So Bruse Tarl can't target itself if you give it the Greaves. Perforos Bronze Blooded is in here for 2 reasons. One, obviously, gives all your creatures haste, but it also has that faux secret attack. What's it called? Sneak attack.
Oh, sneak attack. Yeah.
3 mana, throw something out from your hand, and then obviously anger. Anger's just good. Say you get Archaeomancer's Map down, or something else that's going to draw you some cards. Master of Ceremonies. You have an easy out for anger into the graveyard.
Right.
So there's that. When we get back from break, because I need some water. When we get back from break, we'll talk about the rest of the deck. It's got some wild things in here that honestly I forgot were in here, maybe because I just haven't seen them played yet. And how much I just want to play this deck more because it does big and silly things. So we'll be right back.
Okay.
This episode of Temple of Fallspot is brought to you by Immovable Rod. When you can't quite budget, Welcome back, you fools. That's how to keep an audience, right? It's to insult them.
Yeah, insult them.
We're back today with the rest of our deck tale. Ooh. And we're talking about my Bruse Tarl. I dubbed it Brucon Bromance because who doesn't love a good Bruce?
Everyone I know does.
Yeah, that's the spirit. So we talked about haste. We talked about big damage. We talked about ramp, kind of. Let's talk about how I expect to get through if all of my opponents have creatures. Cloak of the Bat, obviously. We're talking about my get through category. Maul of the Skyclaves is an excellent card. For 3 mana, enters the battlefield, it immediately attaches to a creature. Gives it flying and first strike. First strike, not as much going on there, but +2/+2 and flying is excellent for something that has double strike.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that.
And when you use Maul of the Skycliffs, you get a free copy of the Sky Maul.
If only.
I'm just saying, that was the first thing I thought of when I heard the name of this card. I'm just like, oh, this is terrible. I'm only ever going to think about, ridiculously overpriced items that no one actually really uses.
Right. It's just Brookstone in the sky.
Yeah.
I can't believe they're still a company.
Anyways, sorry. Maul of the Skyclave. I like this card. I get a real kick out of it. +2/+2 flying first strike. It's sort of a create your own angel kind of thing.
Yeah. The biggest downside here is the 4 mana equip cost.
Yeah.
Granted, you get 1 free, and if you have any ways of flickering non-creature things, you can do that. But overall, it's kind of like a one shot thing, unless +2/+2 flying and first strike make it pretty difficult to kill your creature.
Yeah.
At least through combat. My 2 favorite here are Bond of Discipline and Cosmotronic Wave, which kind of go hand in hand. Bond of Discipline is white and 4 for sorcery. Tap all creatures your opponents control, which is amazing. Creatures you control gain lifelink till end of turn. Less pertinent. Just tapping all of your opponent's creatures is an amazing feeling because they purposefully left up creatures to block, and you're just negating those. And not only that, the person to your right can't untap for another 2 players.
Right. So if you do it right, not only do you get a free swing, but you're also likely the only one who could block. Yeah. So when your opponents get their chance, they have to, they've got the opportunity to, like you said, the next person now has 2 opponents that they could swing at. And then the next person still has 1 opponent left that they can swing at. So,
And then with Cosmotronic Wave, it's 3 in a red, so a little cheaper. Cosmotronic Wave deals 1 damage to each creature and each creature your opponents control.
Right.
So you're already taking out X1s, so most tokens, bye-bye. Yeah. Say you have Angrath's Marauders out, and I've played a game against this deck with my wife, and she did that and got rid of a bunch of my stuff. And then the second thing it says is creatures your opponents control can't block this turn. Now, I've looked this up. That isn't just to the creatures that are out now. That's even if creatures come out during combat or before blockers or whatever. Like, creatures your opponents control, period, cannot block this turn. And that's pretty spicy.
That is very nice.
Especially if you're just going to roll right on through.
Yep.
Aurelia is there. Exemplar of Justice, one of my favorite Aurelias out of the 3 or 4 there are.
Yeah, I saw this one in there and I thought, oh, this is just spectacular with Bruse Tarl.
Oh, absolutely. So she's a 2/5 for white-red 2, so same cost as Bruse. 2/5 flying, Mentor. Mentor is whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. Not as helpful here, but that's okay. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose up to one target creature you control, Bruse Tarl. Until end of turn, that creature gets +2/+0, gains trample if it's red. It is. And gains vigilance if it's white. It is. It's just a lot of fun. And if Bruse dies, or you don't feel comfortable, like if Bruse has no opportunity on the ground to attack, you can target Aurelia with those things, attack maybe with Bruse, and if you do with Bruse, he can throw the double strike and lifelink up to Aurelia if need be.
He can, but most of the time it's going to be helpful for Bruse because you're giving him trample.
Right.
Forget about Kediss for just a second. Just Bruse Tarl and Aurelia. Aurelia gives Bruse +2 on the front end. So now you've got a 5/3. They go to combat. Bruse Tarl gives himself double strike and lifelink. Oh, by the way, he's also getting trample and vigilance from Aurelia. So Bruse isn't going to tap. And he's going to swing for 5 when you're doing first strike damage. And if any of that if you don't need, if the blocker is only a 3/3, 2 of it goes over, and then the next round is another 5 points of damage. I mean, this thing, adding Aurelia to the mix is just nasty. And hey, I mean, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to imagine a situation with Bruse Tarl, Kediss, and Aurelia.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I mean, it's 2 commanders and 1 creature. I mean, that's 5. 5 first strike, 5 more on the follow-up. I mean, you're doing 10.
Yeah.
You're doing 10 to each of the opponents you didn't even attack. And your creature's untapped. It's just sitting there waiting to block on the next turn. I mean, oof. Just, oh. Yeah, no, Aurelia is amazing.
I love it. And Vorak Battlehorns gives something trample and opposite of menace.
Right. Just so you can't gang up on Bruse Tarl and to kill it.
And it's, 2 and then 1 to equip, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Gonna go quickly over to protection. This is just to kind of keep things alive, or I mean, with some cases of these things, it's to get it through. So, Commander's Plate. It was a card that I had, but also it's 1 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+3 in protection from each color that's not in your commander's identity. So black, green, and blue. Which,
more importantly, it also means that anything that your deck does to the commander is still good to go.
Yeah.
So you're not getting, there's so many cards that give you, it's like, oh yeah, protect, in this case, protection from red, which makes good sense, but it stops a bunch of your cards from doing stuff to Bruse Tarl that you want to happen.
Right.
So having a card like this, I mean, Bruse Tarl just got pro black,
Scary.
pro blue, pro green. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to just, can't bounce it, can't, you can still rift it, but can't murder it.
Yeah.
It's great.
And the equip cost for your commander is only 3.
Yeah, which is excellent. So I mean, he immediately becomes a 6/6, and that's without anything else. 6/6 with double strike and lifelink.
Yes.
Avacyn's Memorial. Also have not drawn this card yet. It's an 8 mana indestructible legendary artifact. Other legendary permanents you control have indestructible. It's a lot. It's fine. I had it, so I put it in.
Yeah.
Archangel Avacyn, kind of the same, but I'm never gonna probably. I don't know. I guess I could transform it. But I mean, it's mostly here because when it enters, creatures you control gain indestructible till end of turn. She's Flash. But I mean, that also led me to do Boros Charm, which for 2 mana, permanents you control gain indestructible till end of turn, which is excellent. And will really set your opponents back if they did try to wipe the board.
Yep.
And then Mirror Entity. Mirror Entity is nutso in this deck. You get Mirror Entity out, 1 turn, and then the next turn, say, you're untapped, you attack with Bruse Tarl. Your opponents will look at that and be like, I need to block. There's no way I can't block. Because if you're untapping with Mirror Entity, Bruse Tarl can easily become 6, 7, 8. It's easy to just win the game right there.
Mirror Entity messes with combat so bad. Your opponents, they're going to look, when they see Bruse Tarl coming in, one, you have to have a removal. You have to have the removal because now you don't know, or you have to be prepared to lose whatever you're blocking with. And the best part is, a lot of times you don't even have to activate Mirror Entity. You wait and see who they're blocking with. Like, oh, I can kill that without even pumping anything into Mirror Entity. I'm going to save that 4 mana, that 5-6 mana, and use it to cast something else. But you force them to block in a particular way, or to not block at all because they're afraid of losing their creature. It's like, oh, okay, so I'm only going to deal 6 with the double strike this time instead of 10.
Right.
But I get to save 5 mana so that I can then turn around and cast Archangel Avacyn. It's so good that way. It's so good as an onboard trick that can, sometimes you use it and sometimes you don't have to. And it's just perfect because your opponents are hosed either way.
And I have this under protection because often you get to points where people are, doing damage, like direct damage to, say, Bruse Tarl. And it takes 4 mana to just be like, okay, you don't bolt my creature to death,
Right.
So there's that. And I mean, we've been talking about how we've been dealing with +1 counters. +1 counters and Mirror Entity are best friends. Like, it's absurd. So I had mentioned this before, and there's a bit of a sub-theme of copies, and I think that this was mostly spurred on because I had a Kiki Jiki that I was just like, I don't know when else am I going to play this, so might as well be BrewCon. So I have Kiki Jiki Mirror Breaker. It's red 2 with haste for a 2/2. It's never going to attack because when it taps, or you can tap it to put a creature token into play that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control. That creature token has haste, sacrifice it at the end of turn. There's not too many targets here. You can target tokens, which is cool. But I also have Mirror Box in here because I had one. Mirror Box, 3 mana artifact, says the legend rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. Each legendary creature you control gets +1/+1. Each non-token creature you control gets +1/+1 for each other creature you control with the same name as that creature. So obviously, this is in by no means helps each other, but the Mirror Box gives way to being able to have copies, say with Blade of Selves.
Right. I would say even with Kiki Jiki not being able to target legendary creatures, I mean, Angrath Marauder, wow, 2 copies?
Yeah.
Balefire Liege, Bruse Tarl's getting +4/+4. You're doing 6 damage if you cast a red spell. I mean, there are targets out there.
Yeah.
There are plenty. So,
and you mentioning that actually brought up a sore memory of mine. Thanks, Bruce. I was playing against this deck. My wife was playing it, and she had Fellhide Spearbinder out. So whenever it says Fellhide Spearbinder, whenever it becomes untapped, you pay 1 and a red. If you do, put a token copy onto the battlefield as copy of another target creature, except it's an enchantment in addition to its other types. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. Mm-hmm. So you know what she did? Every turn, she had 2 Angrath's Marauders out because she just kept copying it.
Why not?
And then she played, what was it? She played Cosmotronic Wave, dealing 1, 2, 4 damage to each creature.
Yep.
Completely wiping my board, and then just went face, because beautiful. And that's what these copies are here for. Fellhide Spearbinder, but these things are just helping you get creatures to then Kiki-Jiki if you want. Flame Shadow Conjuring, kind of the same thing as Fellhide, but a little bit more one-timey thing.
Right.
Blade of Selves, I would love to... the funny thing with Blade of Selves is that the copies are coming in already attacking, so you're not going to be getting like multiple Bruse Tarl triggers.
Right.
And the copies aren't your commander, so, Kediss isn't going to be doing a lot, except... You ready for this? Attach Blade of Selves to Kediss. Now you're getting a trigger on each Kediss for each time Bruse Tarl hits. I mean, you're also getting a Kediss for each time Kediss hits, but say now you have 3 Kedisses. Right. Bruse Tarl hits an opponent for, let's go with the example from before, hits for 3. Now you have 3 Kediss triggers. So each other opponent gets 9 to their face.
That's first strike.
That's first strike.
9 more for the next
that's
one.
9, 9, and 3. So that's 21 damage total, which means you gain 21. And that's just first strike. So regular strike, it happens again. Blade of Selves, broken card. Who knew?
To be fair, if you're going to equip it to Kediss, you do also have to have the mirror box out. Because Blade of Selves doesn't go around the legend rule all by itself. So you do need some help there, but
it was definitely like a thing where I was like, all right, I have these few cards. Let's see if it makes a theme at all. And like it was wibbly wobbly an idea of copies. It was mostly like, if I draw these cards, let's figure it out then. And I believe I've only drawn Fellhide Spiritbinder out of these 7 cards. Because who knew? This deck goes fast.
Yep.
What else we got here? Draw. Draw is pretty average. It probably could use better draw. All this draw is 4 and 6 mana. Wedding Ring? Cards crazy. Have you played with this card before?
No.
Okay. I have.
No, I have seen it played, but I have not played with it.
So this card, it's white 2 for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, if it was cast, target opponent creates a target that's a copy of it, or token that's a copy of it.
Yeah.
When an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring draws a card during their turn, you draw a card. So, say I give it to you. Every time I draw a card on my turn, you draw a card. Every time you draw a card on your turn, I draw a card. And then the same with life gain. So every time I gain life on my turn, you gain life. Every time you gain life on your turn, I gain life.
Oof.
So imagine this in a 2-player game.
No, that's not what I want to do.
I played this with my wife. Wedding ring, couple, whatever. She had to slow down, and realize that every time she was attacking me, gaining life with this deck, I then turn around and also gained that life. Granted, it's a triggered ability, so if she just hits me hard enough, I don't gain that life.
Right.
But she was attacking with lifelink creatures, and it would bring me down to 7 and then back up to 23. You know, like it was that kind of like, oh geez, this game's going nowhere.
Right.
It's amazing. It's amazing in a 2-player game. It's kind of stupid, but I have not seen this in a 4-player game. I'd love to see it. Combustible Gear Hulk, just it's either card draw or damage, and that's all I want in life. Archon of Coronation.
I'll tell you what I want in life.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be playing Bruticlad and have somebody else play the Wedding Ring and give me a token copy of the Wedding Ring.
You're messed up, Bruce.
Oh, I'll make 15 of these Wedding Rings, and then, oh boy, will I draw.
And gain life.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta stop and think about that for a bit. It just sucks when you want to go to attack, though. You don't have any creatures. Archon of Coronation. Enters the battlefield to become Monarch. As long as you're the Monarch, damage doesn't cause you to lose life. Excuse me. When a creature deals combat damage to you, its controller still becomes the Monarch. It's just that you don't lose life.
Right.
Which is cool. It's just a cool card. Honestly, I'd probably switch that out for Emberwild Captain, if that's not in here already. Honestly, I think we can just walk into wrapping this thing up.
Yeah.
Things that I want to change about this deck. I think I can just scrap the whole copies thing. I wanted to see some cards in action that I haven't ever played. You know, your Kiki Jikis, your Jaxuses, your Mirror Box. I wanted to see how they felt. I didn't draw them. That's fine. Whatever. I can move on. But I think that the thing that this deck wants to do is that Bruse Tarl, Kediss, partnership.
Oh, yeah.
And I think getting rid of that thing, it lets you draw more. I can do more keyword soupy stuff with more than just Audric or a Chroma's Will. I could possibly do more cheat step stuff. Mm-hmm. But honestly, I don't know. Like, I think the thing that this would want to do more of is just that, like, find a way to do damage and do it, Whether it's Torbranny or, Dictate the Twin God style stuff, I think it's fine. I mean, the thing that this deck wants to do is that Bruse Tarl Kediss thing, which is bonkers. I mean, I look at
especially with even just a moderate amount of pump. I love the either the flying or trample to give you a little more evasion. I mean, the danger, of course, is that, it's probably a good idea to expand on, say, the wide category a little bit if you're going to take those 7 cards out of your copy section. Because, boy, the last thing you want is to have all your eggs in that one Voltron basket.
Yeah.
And just have it not, because there's going to come up, you're going to run into games where people are just going to be like, no, that's got to go. Because they're going to know.
Or they're going to chump it.
Right. Which
is exactly what happened.
But I mean, even if they chump it, you gain a pile of life.
Right. To an extent. I mean, that's kind of where the double strike falters a little. Is that if the thing's dead by regular, but like the thing that this deck, like I said, within a span of a few turns, I was at 100 life. It was easy. It was quick. It was sudden. Yeah. And then for the rest of the game, it was 98, 96. Like I was taking a little bit of damage here and there. And then I just went right back up at my next turn. But the thing was that it was a 4-player game. Me and one of my opponents had successfully taken out 2 of our opponents.
Right.
This was, I think it was you, Liz, and Ian, and me. And it was down to me and Liz. Liz had their Krav Regna deck, and it wasn't so much about the flying. There was a lot of tokens, and there was a bit of aristocratic stuff, But being at 100 life, it's not a huge problem for me.
Right.
That is until you make your creatures unblockable, and I lose to commander damage. Which, I mean, like, is, you know, that's like the reason commander damage exists, right? Is because of like life gain stuff. And I like it had come down to if they didn't kill me that turn, I would have killed them immediately. Like it was
right.
that close, you know. It was a beautiful game where we both got well over 100 life. And honestly, I had a blast because this deck is explosive. It comes out of the gate fast if you let it. Don't slow play this one. Just go. Just go. Just do the thing that you think of first and don't look back.
That's what Boros wants.
It's amazing.
I love the deck. I love decks like this where it's, you know, you're focused in on one particular setup. And then as long as you have the backup so that you can, you know, once people start keying on one part of it, you can jump to something else. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think that will be, I think that's going to be fun with this deck.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you know, I had built it for BrewCon, but I think I'm going to keep it together for a little bit longer.
Right.
Get a few more games in with it because it felt really good. You know, there are those things that we talked about before, but I think that like the changes here are minor. You know, get rid of the copy sub theme, maybe get rid of so much double strike stuff, and like turn it into trample or turn it into flying, turn it into like. Honestly, flying might be the way to go because more so for the blockers. Because if you can have flying blockers, you're impenetrable. Like,
right.
That's really the thing here. But I'm going to have the list in the description below. If you are looking for an updated version of the list, just reach right out to me. You can reach me at FalsePodMTG on Twitter. We'll have all that contact stuff at the end. But I think that's going to do it for us this week. We've got only a few more episodes left of this season. If there's something you want to hear about, let us know. That's how we do things here at the Temple of FalsePod. We're decks are not optimized, but our plays sure as heck are fun. I'm Andy.
I'm Bruce.
Yeah, you are. We'll be back next week with a cool episode. Surely, because they're all cool. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for hanging out. Give us a follow. Share us with any and all of your friends. Even if they don't like Magic, it's a good time here. Have a great night. May your fifth land be the temple.
Bye.
Wait. Before you go, I just wanted to say thank you for listening. You can reach out to us via email at falsepodmtg@gmail.com or on Twitter at falsepodmtg. Bruce is at ManaBurned, and I'm at Andy Weekend, though you'll definitely notice I use the podcast Twitter far more often. Now that we've got you here, make sure you subscribe, like, rate us on whatever podcast platform you use. It helps us out. It gets us more reach. Subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Like a video there. Leave some comments for more casual enjoyment. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back with some more timeless discussions about all things casual. So come hang out, and may your fifth land be the temple. Bye-bye. Should I do my best, Bruce? Bye!